الحمد لله نحمده نستعينه نستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and raise the status of the perfect soul of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whose blessed nur is a guider from us from now until end of time. And may Allah bless his beloved companions, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Uthman, and Sayyidina Ali. And may Allah be pleased with them all and the over 10,000 Sahaba. May Allah bless the souls of the people of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's great family, Ahlul Bayt, and all of our mashayikh and teachers who have brought us the mighty gift of Islam. May Allah bless the Ansar and the Muhajirin and all of the Muslims and non-Muslims of the earth. Guide all of us, Ya Rabb, and never deprive us of your rahmah, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Ameen. We will never be able to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for this great ni'mah of Islam. Our level of thanks, our level of shukr is only up to the level that we are aware of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. And this awareness will always be limited by the edges of our mind. And the edges of our mind depend on how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed it to expand. Only by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us will we come to understand how much that He has taken care of us, and how much He has settled our affairs, and how much is coming to us in the future. Your wealth, your health, your safety, and your intelligence, all of these things have secrets inside of them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept preserved specifically for you. Whether they're open or they're not, or they're in abundance, or they're in constriction, whether they're big or whether they're small, whether they are small in amount or whether they are small in amount, that we have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Himself in Surah Rahman, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Then which of your favors that your Lord has provided, which of them will you deny? In this surah, Surah Rahman, the surah itself consists of 78 ayat. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeated this phrase, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ 31 times, which is nearly 40% of that whole surah. So we have to think about what is the point of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning this to us so many times. That is one reminder not enough. So we will think about this in the khutbah, inshallah. As Muslims, we have to ask ourselves every day, do we even know about these favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us? Forget about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the ayah, which is, which of these favors will you deny? Before we even get there, do we even know about the favors that He's talking about in the surah? Do we even have the eyes to see the haqq of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted us? It is most likely then from what we see that perhaps what we recognize is only 1% or maybe even less than 1% of the rahmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us. These things that we do every day, from eating, sleeping, working, playing, relaxing, being with family, we do all of these things every single day, multiple times a day. There are millions of actions that we take on a daily basis. From the most mundane and boring, something simple, even you having a cup of tea in the morning, to the events in your life that are spiritually elevated and are exciting, and there's lots of dynamic movement and emotions and things are swelling in your life. So despite these millions and millions of actions that we are able to do every single day, can you believe, or can you even fathom, that there is a sunnah attached to every single one of these actions? For every single one of these millions of actions, each thing that you can possibly imagine to do during the day, there is a sunnah way to do it that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gift wrapped with his essence, that you can then look into and learn about and try to replicate. One of the greatest blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ever bestowed onto us is His finest creation, the character and the preservation of Hadrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is His sunnah that wraps around every single conceivable action in human existence. Alhamdulillah, 2 weeks ago we were lucky that the class that the young adults are invited to at Noon Academy to attend, Spiritual Compass, it restarted underneath the tutorage of Shaykh Walid, alhamdulillah. So we resumed this class, and this class focuses on a book written by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, and this book is called Adab al-Mufrad. It is a collection of as many hadith that Imam Bukhari could find on the akhlaq and mannerisms of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every single action, and you should read the chapter headings in this book, because quite frankly they look a little boring. You will read a book of eating, and then there will be book of sneezing and yawning, and then there's book of so and so and so and so. All these chapters that are in this book, they cover what seems to be very mundane things, but the hikmah behind each hadith that is preserved by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah is incredible, because you realize the more a hadith you read and the more you analyze and the more you open up each hadith, you start to see that there's almost no difference between our lives and the lives of the Salaf that walked with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except obviously, of course, they walk with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so they have his hikmah and they have his suhbah. So that changes everything. But in terms of how the lives are lived, we're essentially the same. It's just that our technology is different and maybe our language is different. But is a son still responsible for what he does with his family, to his father, to his brother, to his sister? Yes. Is a wife and a husband, are they still responsible for what they do with each other in the home? Yes. The style of relationships and the ranges of relationships is no different at all. And it would be foolish to try to trick ourselves into thinking, oh, we're so modern, we're so different. I don't really need to learn about what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did with the Sahaba 1400 years ago. Well, I would ask you to, if you think like this, that you should humble yourself. Because the reality is our lives, in fact, we need this hikmah and guidance more than ever in these times. When people don't know the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when people don't know his sunnah, and when people don't know how he walked and how he smiled and how he acted and what you're supposed to do, if you say you're a Muslim and you have a business, there's an Islamic way to run your business. If you are a son in your home and all you do is service your mother and your parents, there's a sunnah behind that as well. If you are a student and all you do is go to school and you interact with teachers and classmates, there's a sunnah for that as well. There is sunnah for every single micro behavior and every single relationship you have. There's nothing in this dunya that is away from the coverage of the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So bear that in mind, inshallah, that there is something constantly to work on. And remember that if you have a whole list of things, let's say, and this applies to anyone and everybody, you have a whole list of things to accomplish. You're a person who works in an office, so that means waking up, that means taking a shower, having breakfast, getting ready to go to work, traveling to work, and then being at work, how you are at work, and then you have lunch at work, and then so on until you go home and the day is done. There's at least 50 contact points that you can have with the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At least. That would be making the list small. In every single one of these opportunities, there's a window to replicate Habibullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which deen or which tradition or which people have any kind of access like how the Muslims have access to their Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This is a really miraculous thing, to the point where we know the tiniest details about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Can you imagine, in scholarly circles, like in the Christian academic circles, the academics, they go from trying to understand what is the meaning behind the Trinity, does it even exist in the Bible, does it even exist in the deen, all the way to, did Isa alayhi salam even exist? This is how far the academic narrative can go in the study of deen. It can go so far that shaitan will convince you that people didn't exist at all. This is the level of confusion that is in the dunya, and especially in these end times where people don't know about their anbiya, and there's nothing left to review. There's nothing left to look at. Even if they looked into their Bibles, they would be confused about what is the sanad of this narration, which is true. So we have to ask ourselves as Muslims, do we even understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved our Prophet for us? That to the point that we know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ate chicken. He ate chicken and he was seen eating chicken, and there's mutawatir hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam eating food. And we know what he ate. And we know what he said before he ate. And we know what he said after he ate. And we know who watched him eat. And we know who watched him eat. And we know who recorded that watching of that eating. That his eating is blessed. The food he's eating is blessed. The ones who were shahada to his eating are blessed. And that chain of narrators are blessed. And then we are blessed for even reviewing that riwayah, that narration. This is something unique to the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's so much, it's a rich treasure trove of gems. There's nothing, like literally, there's nothing in your life, there's no aspect of your life living, any action you do that does not have a direct comparison or have a direct example or an adjacent example from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the Sahaba or to the great A'imma, the great Imams of Islam. There will be something there for you to find and reflect on. We know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate chicken. We know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would play with his grandsons, Hassan and Hussein, when they were little, he would play with them and he would crawl on the floor and he would be at their level when he would play with them. This is our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's the man, he's the khairul bashar that has been charged to teach us about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You think he would have bigger and much more difficult things to worry about on his shoulders, but he makes time to play with his grandsons. This reminds me of a hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was playing and he was showing affection to his loved ones. I believe it was with his grandsons, and a man observed this behavior and he was saying, "Ya Rasulullah, you play and you touch and you kiss your children. I haven't even hugged my child once." These ideas of masculinity or these ideas of how to be with family, or these ideas with how to be in general, if it's without the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it comes from your own nafs. And when you follow your nafs with how to be, and there's no oversight, there's no hidayah, there's no nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then whatever the nafs produces, it is guaranteed to destroy you eventually. If it comes from your own nafs, it means your nafs likes it. And if your nafs likes it, it is most likely it is leading you somewhere down, which is far away from the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these examples, they're all pieces of nur that our scholars and the Sahaba and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected for our benefit. There's nothing to be had greater than any piece of this sunnah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would lie in the lap of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha during her menses period, during that menses, and he would read her Quran from his lips. Subhanallah. Look at that. It's every idea we have about how to be a man, maybe you get close. Maybe your culture will help you. Maybe you have a manly culture. Maybe you have strong relatives or uncles or a father. There's like, this is how to be a man. You be a man like this. You will never get to the actual essence of manliness without going to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because who would think of this naturally? Only someone who received Quran directly into their heart will know how to use it properly. And this is an example. And this example is so powerful. In just this example, teaches you how to be with your wife, teaches you how to be with your wife on her menses. And above that, it's what is the akhlaq? What is the mannerism? What is the charm? What is the beautiful romantic way to be with your wife, so that not only does she not feel alienated from you, but she feels even closer to you. And then you're doing what? You're doing dhikrullah. So what better thing can you provide her or your family than this? This is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the Sahaba. They would say, when we would see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam speak, it was as if watching a rope or a thin rope fall out of his mouth, and then with each pulling there would be a pearl attached to each pull. It's like that. It's like a flood of barakah and guidance. Just in these examples, there's so much to draw from. This is so unique to the deen of Islam. So I have a challenge for all of you, and the challenge is, I want you all to find a social situation between two people, maybe someone you and someone you know, or another situation, and they're in some kind of conflict. I want you, and I challenge you, to find the sunnah solution to that problem, and I guarantee you will find it. And I guarantee you will find it either within him, Rasulullah ﷺ himself, or his Sahaba, or in the great A'imma of Islam. You will find that solution. And I bet that they beat you 1400 years ago much faster than you did. I read these reflections sometimes. You see these on social media, like the reflections of young scholars. And it's a bit of a joke that they make among themselves. They're like, oh, I'm dealing with this incredibly unique fiqh problem. I can't figure it out. It's too unique. It's too modern. And then they'll flick through the Muwatta, or they'll flick through a hadith book, and they're like, oh, okay, it's there. Never mind. My problems aren't that unique. It was solved such a long time ago. I just had to find it. You and I, our lifestyles are not that different to the Salaf in terms of what the daily life requires from us. As Shaykh Waleed mentioned last night in our hadith class, the daily life consists of paying attention to two things. And it is the rights and the duties of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around you. Your daily interactions force you to deal with the creation of Allah every single day. So there is no escaping this situation at all. And Shaykh provided a beautiful example, and he said that something as simple like a plant, like imagine a house plant, especially our desis, we love to put plants and flowers everywhere in the house. So imagine that humble plant in your home. And although it seems lifeless and mundane and like it's not doing anything, it has life. And it is following a command that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in its creation, and it's doing it all the time. And what is that? What's the job of that plant? is to produce oxygen. And that oxygen it's producing, it's benefiting you. How? Because you take a breath in your home. And that plant has a contribution to all of the oxygen and the air that is available to you in your home. But this simple plant is also a means of increasing and maintaining your life on earth. However, you would never really even pay attention to it. You take oxygen from that plant, and then you replace that oxygen with carbon dioxide, and then the plant takes it from you and then converts it back. It's a beautiful cycle. But not only that, that plant, although you can't hear it, is what? Making tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a praise that you can't hear. And it is doing its job as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands it. When you breathe and you take from it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the first witness of how you treated that plant. Your breath is recorded. That plant is recorded. And even that plant can be a witness for you, either against you or for you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls a plant in front of you and asks that plant, I made you as a creation, and my other creation took you and put him in your home. So now testify for this brother. Tell me, what did you witness in the home of this brother? And then the plant starts speaking, and the plant says, I was the biggest plant in the home of so-and-so, and the homeowner, he watered me, and he fed me, and he gave me sunlight, and then I took that, and then I produced air and oxygen for him to breathe. And then when he took that oxygen from me, he said good words to his family. And then he breathed, and that breath gave me energy to do good works, because the plant takes your CO2 and makes more oxygen. And then he breathed, and then he remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that breath, because he had remembered that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him something, a piece of life. And then he breathed my pollen. So imagine it's a plant with some pollen buds on it. And he breathed the pollen into his nostrils. And then he sneezed. And then with that sneeze, he praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again, because he said Alhamdulillah after he sneezed. And then that led to his brother in the house, in another room, to say, Yarhamakullah, may Allah's rahmah be upon you, because that was the reply given to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when you hear your brother sneeze and he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says Alhamdulillah, you reply to him, Yarhamakullah, may Allah have mercy on you. And then the homeowner said back to his brother in reply, Yahdika humullah wa yuslihu balakum. May Allah guide you and put your affairs in order. These are the sunnah of sneezing. As I remember when I mentioned earlier that the books in Adab al-Mufrad, the chapters, they have seemingly mundane headings, but then if you look into the actual hikmah behind why Imam Bukhari included it, now you're going to see. These are the ahkam behind it. So imagine this singular houseplant testifying for you and being the means of a majlis of dhikr that starts in the house, just from doing its job that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it to do. So there is no escaping the circle of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reality of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that there is nothing in this life that exists without his sunnah touching it, or without an example of his actions similar to that thing. If you follow his sunnah alayhi salatu wasalam, people will love you, your family will love you, your employer will love you, and your society will love you. But above all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you. And there is no higher mahabba than the hubb of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why does this love happen? Because when you follow the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam more and more, your life starts to reflect more like his life. Even if you don't see the immediate benefit right away, you are following the example of Habibullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards greatly those who follow him, him first, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then those who follow the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There is no following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there is no following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam without following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran at least 30 times, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. O those who believe, obey Allah and obey the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. May Allah allow us to embody the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and grant us peace and grant us shifa and grant us the shifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his Sunnah. May Allah grant us this hikmah behind his aqwal and his being and his mannerisms, and grant us this great barakah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We have this great means here in Noon Academy. The class, I believe, may have registration open for a couple more days. If you are interested, please, you can find a volunteer or you can find someone who is the admin of the class. We can get you in, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullah Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi min wala wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ibadallah, anna Allah sallu ala habib al-Mustafa wa athna ala malaikati arshi wal kursi fa qala adim ma qala inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. May Allah be pleased with all the companions, including Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhuma. May Allah be pleased with the Ansar and the Muhajirin and the Sahaba of Ahlul Badr and Ahlul Uhud. May Allah bless Ahlul Bayt, including the lineages of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Wa radallahumma ala mashayikhina wa ashab al-huquq. Allahumma gfir li wa li walidayya wa lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. May Allah bless the whole ummah, everyone in this congregation. May Allah bring Ahlul Palestine the relief and the victory, and all the Muslims fi kulli makan. And may Allah give all of our sick the shifa. May Allah bless this center and all of the people who build it and benefit from it. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ameen. Please remember to donate to this center that brings you this great rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa aqimus salah.